Ryan Nobles is from CNN. Good morning. Good morning, Ryan. Did you ever work for Sinclair?
I technically did work for Sinclair in a freelance capacity in Rochester in between my time in Utica and before I was in Albany. And then when I was in Richmond, one of the stations that I anchored for had a news sharing agreement with Sinclair, but I did not work directly for Sinclair. So I was on a Sinclair station every day, but I've never a full-time Sinclair employee, no. But I have
clearly
many friends
who are somewhat bothered that they were forced to do this promo, taking an editorial stance that they needed to claim as their own, which might not necessarily have been their own, right?
Yeah, and I tweeted about this 2 weekends ago about how I feel for a lot of my colleagues that are in this position because they don't have a lot of flexibility in these matters.
Yeah.
And these are people with jobs, with families, with mortgages, and they're being put in this position by their corporate leaders. And these aren't their news directors and their managers who they deal with on a day-to-day basis. These are people that are, in a corporate tower somewhere. Who are, putting a script in front of them and telling them that they have to read it. Now, that's not, that happens a lot for local television anchors. You're asked to read promos all the time. They usually are not this politically charged and have the backdrop of all the issues involved with Sinclair.
I'll give you an example, and we've talked about this week on the air, is that a live endorsement, so a live commercial that should be read by personalities like me, across the country, sent out across the country, and it comes with a talent fee. Pretty decent talent fee. And the copy was sent to me, and it was asked, are you comfortable doing this? And it was taking a political stance, and I'm not even going to get into whether it was right or left, but taking a political stance, and I would be paid to take that stance. So you'll be glad to know, my wife was not, you'll be glad to know that I didn't take the money. I don't think you can. You can't be paid to have a political opinion. That's terrible.
Well, and I think that, in the defense of many of my colleagues, and I know a good example is right in upstate New York, Michael Benny, who's been at Channel 5 in Syracuse for many years. And, there was a time where Channel 5 was on in Utica when they were the CBS affiliate for Utica. So I'm sure there are viewers in the Utica area who know who Michael Benny is. He wrote a very long Facebook post about his experience with this. And what I think a lot of people are losing the timeline. So, they were asked to read this promo before it got out into the atmosphere of the politically charged environment that we're in. And if you look at the script unto itself and you don't, take into context the fact that every single anchor across the country was going to be parroting these same exact words.
Right.
And you also take out the politically charged connections that Sinclair Broadcasting has to the Trump administration right now. If you just read it on its face, it probably wouldn't seem all that terrible. It sounds like a promo where they're trying to defend themselves,
right,
and present the fact that they're trying to be unbiased in their news gathering. But I think what happened to a lot of these anchors is, if you're a local television anchor, and this is what makes local television anchors so special, their job is to be focused on what's happening in their communities, what's happening in Syracuse, in Rochester, in Albany, in Utica. They're not thinking about what's happening in Washington. And I don't blame any of these local anchors if they're not up to date on the day-to-day machinations of the internal politics of Sinclair Broadcasting and the Trump administration. So if they were brought into a studio and said, okay, we got to read this promo that's going to run during sweeps, can we just knock this out and get it done? Most of these anchors probably just did it without thinking about it. And, maybe they should have had a little bit more forethought about that. And I think there were a few anchors that were concerned about it, and that's kind of where the news started.
And I think that once it came out, it made them look like they had been had, and that was the real problem.
Well, and I think let me just make this one other point. And I think the thing that makes me most uncomfortable about it is, I worked for NBC affiliates, I worked for Fox affiliates, I've worked for ABC affiliates, and I would always have people tell me, okay, well, your corporate overlords at NBC up at Rockefeller Center are telling you to say this and telling you to report this. And I could always proudly say that I never had a corporate overlord in some ivory tower in a city far away from where I was reporting the news tell me to say something or tell me to report something. And in this case, these Sinclair anchors have now been put in a position where they can't say that.
Right.
And I think that's a dangerous precedent for local news.
And I think it's really important to understand the difference between commercials running on an airwave. We get them all the time. These issue-based commercials happen all the time. That versus asking a personality to say, here's how I feel. This is what I think. And you're paid to have that opinion, or you could lose your job if you don't have that opinion. That's really dangerous. Quickly, Andy.
Well, no, and just to piggyback Ryan's point with regard to that is that these, people escape the at least for the most part, they like to go to their local news to escape what is exactly being talked about by these people. So again, it's a branding issue.
Fish out of water thing when they're talking national news. Okay, let's get to the big news. I want to quote here, Ryan, and I wanted to get your take. Russia vows to shoot down any and all missiles fired at Syria. Get ready, Russia, because they will be coming. Nice and new and smart. You shouldn't be partners with a gas-killing animal who kills his people and enjoys it. That's the president. What do you think?
Well, once again, this is a display of hypocrisy by the President of the United States. He was so critical of President Obama during Obama's handling of the Syria issue when Obama talked about a red line having to do with chemical weapons, and then he didn't really follow through with any kind of tough action against the Assad regime. I mean, there are multiple tweets that people are showing today from 2013 where Trump harshly criticizes Obama for warning about a potential attack, saying that should all be done by surprise.
Yeah.
Here he comes out this morning and says, listen, we're going to attack you, so get ready for it. Move your people out of the way.
That is funny. I didn't even think about that. But
yeah, I mean, it's complete hypocrisy on that note. Now, I think the Trump administration is right when the Obama administration left them with a mess in Syria.
No doubt.
They did not handle the situation well. Even, Tommy Vietor is one of President Obama's former spokespeople who dealt with this issue directly during his time in office, admitted that the Obama administration didn't handle this well because it's a really hard issue. It's difficult. This is complex.
I almost feel this was probably Obama's worst moment. He drew a line in the sand. There was a red line. We were all sitting around wondering if we were going to attack, and then we didn't. It was awful.
Yeah, and then Assad continued to build a bigger foothold.
Yeah.
Putin then, that's basically at the point in time where Putin saw an opening and latched himself onto Assad. You have Iran in the mix as well, complicating the entire region. This is a tough, awful situation because then you also have the ISIS side of it, which ISIS to a certain extent is on the run, but I mean that's how ISIS was able to grow and fester was because of the uncertainty in that region. And I just don't know what the next move is. But I think more than anything, what we're seeing here, Bill, is this is the John Bolton influence on Donald Trump. It's already underway. Mm-hmm. He's only been in that job for about 36 hours, and he is already influencing the president in a big way. Bolton is a hawk. He's always someone that thinks attack first and figure it out later. And that's exactly the tactic that it appears the president is taking here. But keep in mind, Bill, 2 weeks ago, less than that, President Trump was telling everybody he was getting out of Syria. He was washing his hands of it. He didn't want anything to do with it. Yeah. Now he's talking about bombing that.
I got to tell you, you might think less of me, and I know that you can. There's only so far you can go, Ryan. But I don't believe Assad did this to his people.
Okay, why?
I don't believe he did it. It just makes no sense. Why would you want to encourage? You know that the United States is going to act. You've got a president who could act in any way. You don't know how this president is going to act. I don't believe he did it. I think that it's been done to lure us in or to give us the opportunity to be able to do what should have been done during Obama. I know that makes me sound like a conspiracy theorist and probably crazy, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, here's the thing about that, and your thinking on this is not incorrect. I mean, that would make sense. That would be a way to draw the United States into the fight. So if it were rebels or a terrorist group that that were attacking the people there as a way to make Assad look bad, that's possible. But here's the problem with chemical weapons: they're difficult to get. These terrorist organizations don't necessarily have the resources and the connections to get chemical weapons of this grade that can do this kind of damage on this scale. It has to be backed in some way, shape, or form by a state. Now, maybe is Iran doing it? and then funding these terrorist organizations to do that, maybe. But their terrorist organizations don't necessarily play in that space.
All I'm saying is I find it hard to believe that he did this again, knowing that there's been that red line that's been drawn. And,
but if you look at his track record, he doesn't seem to care.
I guess you can't logically come up with a logical opinion based on your own logic without considering the lack of logic of the person that you're talking about. And maybe that is it. And this guy's just maniacal and horrible and a demon, as the president describes. So, all right, switch gears to politics. They raid the president's attorney's property. What's the take here? It looks like the president might be making a move. There might be a firing underway. What are you hearing?
Well, the biggest thing that we have to keep an eye on here, Bill, is does the president really want to fire the special counsel or at least do something to interrupt the work of Robert Mueller? And even though it seems as though every member of Congress, is to a certain extent just ignoring this, acting like it's not a big threat, there's enough reporting out there that what the president would really like to see happen is Mueller taken off of this case. Now, does that mean does he fire Rod Rosenstein and then bring in a new deputy attorney general who then fires Mueller? Does he just think that he has the power to fire Mueller all by himself and end the investigation? I think all those things are of a concern, and it's a bigger concern because if he does that, it has the potential to lead to a constitutional crisis because there's questions as to whether or not he has that authority. And then if he does do that, what does that say about his guilt or innocence in this? It's going to create an enormous amount of a lack of clarity because we're not going to get this final declaration from the special counsel's office about what their investigation discovered. It's just going to leave it in this murky territory where he's always going to be under the cloud of investigation, but there's never going to be some sort of an end to it. Because if he ends it now, with all these unanswered questions, maybe he's no longer being investigated, but everybody's going to still be attacking him for it. And it just seems like, it seems like everyone is advising him not to do that. But he's getting increasingly upset at the actions that the special counsel is taking. And the president is impulsive, and he is a battler, and he might think that he's smarter than everybody else in the room when it comes to this.
Andrew.
Ryan, really quick, I just want to get your reaction because we don't have a lot of time. Reports now Paul Ryan will be possibly announcing he won't run for re-election today. Are you hearing anything about that?
Yeah, I was hoping we would get to that. It seems as though we are in the process of confirming that report. It looks like it's going to happen. This has been something that's been in the rumor mill now for several weeks, that Paul Ryan was basically getting his ducks in a row. Once he passed tax reform, which was his, lifelong dream, once he was able to do that, it seemed as though he kind of sees the handwriting on the wall about how difficult it's going to be for the Republicans to hold on to the House of Representatives in the fall. And I also think, living in the era of Trump is just not something that a Paul Ryan-style politician is interested in doing anymore. So, this is a huge, huge story. If it happens, what comes out today, we're being told that he's going to announce it officially to the members of the conference today during a meeting this afternoon or this morning. And then it becomes official. He's not seeking re-election, and then the race is on to become the next Speaker of the House. Paul Ryan has been, for whatever you say about him, he's been an ally of Donald Trump in terms of getting his agenda passed in the House of Representatives. This is going to cause a huge upheaval as there's certain wings of the Republican Party that aren't necessarily pro-Trump. Other wings of the party that are heavily pro-Trump. They're going to be battling it out. And, the future of the Republican Party and the direction that they go in is now definitely hanging in the balance because Paul Ryan is going to exit the stage.
Going to be interesting. And, just every day that goes by and you think we've reached a peak, you realize that the peak isn't quite there just yet. We just keep peaking. It's crazy. Ryan Nobles from CNN, as always, thanks so much. We'll talk again next week and enjoy the week. Thanks so much.